Monowar Hussein Shalia. Monowar, how are you?
Hi, I'm fine. How are you?
Jolly. I'm very well, thank you. I'm very well. So, Monowar, you're going to be talking about reverse firmware, reverse engineering, a pragmatic approach. I like the sound
Yes,
of that. So, if I can understand some of it, you'll know that you've definitely taught somebody. But Manavar, in the interest of time, I'm going to ask you to bring your presentation up and crack on with your work.
sure. I have shared my screen. Let me know if you are not able to see it.
There you go.
Yeah.
Over to you.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Hi, everyone. So the topic of today's presentation is reverse engineering firmwares. I'm pretty sure you have heard this topic a lot of time, but today we will discuss some of the challenges that I face regularly in my work, and so I put together some things that can help you. So let's get started. I'm an IoT security researcher, and my full-time responsibility involves security testing of devices that are out there, especially with our clients, and help them to fix them and find appropriate solution for them. I have spoke and delivered training in various conferences. My primary interests are reverse engineering, binary analysis, and so on. So if you want to contact me, you can contact me on Twitter. So giving you a little bit overview about today's discussion. So first we'll go into what is firmware, and the primary thing about firmware is what operating system do they use, and what are the different components involved in operating system. Then we will look at first category of the firmware, which is full-fledged operating system, and we will see what it is as we move forward. And the next category is bare metal firmware, and we will look at some of the tools that you can use to reverse engineer this kind of firmwares, and what all challenges will you face. And last but not the least is how do you fuzz this firmware, and how do you emulate this without having the actual device, because buying device for each of the firmware you encounter will be little difficult. So we will look into how to do that, how to do emulation, and how to find security bugs. So if we talk about embedded system in general, there are there are different architecture, and MIPS, ARM, and different sort of CPU architecture. There are different. Some of the CPU will have a sophisticated memory management, like x86 virtual paging. Some of them will not have. What all different? There are different RAM sizes, storage capabilities based on the complexity of the device and what all features it offers. So a simple device like weather monitoring system will have just some data reading and forwarding the data facility, but other complicated system like webcam will have many features like wireless network, camera attached to it, and it will have facilities to store the video. So all of this makes the device very complicated. The next piece of the component of any device is the operating system, what in which the whole thing is programmed, and how it is handling the whole data of the device. And the other thing is the tool chain, which is helping to compile the whole firmware, and the device drivers, and what all SDKs do the vendors provide, so that the developers can add more features to the device. So if we broadly look at the embedded operating system, then first category is full-fledged OS, and this is not something any official term as such. This is invented by this name is invented by me. So in the this category, this is a very rough category. In this category, you have a whole operating system which is available to the developer of the device. You have complex system calls which are available, and whatever application that you program are based on the kernel, and then the kernel is interfaced with the hardware, and the application program does not directly interact with the hardware. So the kernel is sitting between the application and the hardware to provide the necessary coordination and all the operating system functionality. Usually, this kind of systems have a microprocessor, and which are little complicated and feature-rich operating system. On the other of the spectrum is a bare metal operating system. So in this, the application code that you write are directly talking to the hardware. Usually, this type of system are not very complicated, and it usually involves reading some sensor data and forwarding that data on some communication interface. Usually, this type of system are usually the microcontroller, uh, which are not very based on very high processing things. So let's look a little bit deeper into a full-fledged operating system, what they are. So a full-fledged operating system will have a bootloader, which is the first thing it starts when you turn on the device. Its responsibility is to bring more and more component of the operating system into running memory and start the operating system. One example of the bootloader will be U-Boot, which is a popular bootloader in embedded space. Another variant is Red Boot, and there are many other bootloaders out there. So the first, their responsibility is to load the kernel from any storage device. It can be flash memory or a USB storage. It brings the kernel inside the RAM and hands over the execution responsibility to the kernel. There now in this space there are many operating systems that you can use to make a device based on this. First of all, very popular choice is Linux. Other options are Windows, and VxWorks is also very popular in real-time operating system scenario. And there's another operating system, Cisco OS. Since this devices store the data in a very constrained environment, so they usually use compression to store the operating system in a storage, and during the execution time they decompress it and put it in the memory and start running it. Some of the file system, another important component of any operating system is the file system, and some of the popular choices in this space are SquashFS, YAFS2, which is in Android, and there are many other options. CPIO archive is another option. And so let's look at some of the analysis tool. Benwalk is a very popular tool for extracting file system from the firmware. So when you're doing any sort of analysis for any embedded device, the first thing which you try to do is extract the firmware. But the firmware does not have any standard format, and it is usually many binary blobs are stuck together. So what the Benwalk is really good at is finding those small pieces of binary files in big blob, which are part of the firmware. So what Benwalk will tear them apart and give you in a very usable form. Benwalk has a huge signature library which it uses to do this, and it will identify the piece of binary section. It will chop it up and give it to you. So what firmware modkit does is it gives you the capability to modify the firmware and repack it, so you can patch it or make any changes and reflash the firmware on the device, so you can change the behavior of the device. QEMU is a very popular tool among embedded developer, especially kernel developer, to emulate a whole system. So we will look into what is emulation and virtualization when we discuss QEMU in more detail. Chilling is another very popular tool which has recently come up in the space. It is based, so it is a sub project out of QEMU called Unicorn, and based on Unicorn the chilling is developed. So QEMU is basically a tool to run any firmware, but chilling is give you a sort of modification, gives you a programmable way to run the QEMU, so its strengths lies in that. Another tool is reverse engineering. Of course, you want to load the code of the binary and see what it is doing. So Ghidra is a very good tool for doing that. So talking about the Kimu is going to be very useful because you will be able to run different architecture in your machine without actually having the hardware. So it's very important to know this technology. Another thing that comes up is what is emulation and virtualization. So in virtualization, you are running the same architecture on the machine operating system which is on your machine. So if you have a operating system which is based on x86 and your machine is also based on x86, but when you do a emulation, you are actually running a foreign architecture in your machine which is different from your machine. For example, running an ARM binary on your x86 system. Kimu is a very fast emulator. It has many features that makes it gives reasonable performance. It allows you to add different devices and hardware. And how actually Kimu runs is it translates the guest instruction, for example, ARM, into an intermediate representation. Then the intermediate representation is translated into host instruction. For example, it will translate a ARM into intermediate representation. Then the translation will be done to your system, which will be based on x86, and the code is executed. It supports many different CPU architecture, ARM, MIPS, RISC. So it's a very great project to explore if you are into an embedded space. Another very good tool which I very frequently use is to reverse engineer binary is Ghidra. It is free and open source, so which is a very good thing. You get a very nice decompiler which is free of cost. If you go to other vendors, then they are very expensive if you buy them. It's written in Java, so it can run on many platforms, Mac, Windows, or Linux, whatever you are working on. It supports many different architecture, ARM, MIPS, PowerPC. So there are some of the other reverse engineering tools in the market which gives you this which won't give you this architecture in their free version, but Ghidra has many of the foreign architecture which are widely found for free. So Ghidra mainly is for binary analysis. It has a lot of plugins. So the architecture is also very good because the most of the code of the functionality which you use in the Ghidra is sort of a plugin, and you can extend it very easily, and the code is very well separated in the form of APIs, so which you can use. You can also write a plugin in Java and Python, so which is a very good option. So let's look at the overall how do you use this all the tools which I just described. With Binwalk, initially you have the binary, you take the Binwalk, you take the binary and disassemble, take apart different binaries in the main binary block. Then you try to run something in Kimu and see if you can understand the binary behavior, what it is doing, what all hardware device it is communicating with. Chilling and Kimu are sort of in the same league. So they help you to achieve the same objective, which is do a dynamic analysis. Ghidra will help you to do static analysis, basically understand the behavior. So then you can change your input and rerun that binary in Kimu. So enough of the theory, let me give you an example so that you can get an idea of what I'm talking about. So let's take an example of a D-Link firmware. So there is a firmware AC1200. For this, we will take an example of a firmware DIR 825 AC1200. So this is the firmware which you can download from the D-Link website. If you go to the product page, it will direct you to a link. And if you change the links to one path back, then you can find all the different version of this firmware. So I managed to download the firmware versions. So let's look. So if you go and download all this firmware, then you'll find there are different version. At least there were 9 different versions when I saw this. And if I looked at the recent version of the firmware, it was encrypted. So let's try to do a binwalk on. So these are the different versions which are separated out. And if we look at the latest version, it is encrypted. Okay, I guess this is the decrypted one. If you extract it and if you try it, if you see this, this firmware is encrypted and binwalk is not able to identify any of this thing. I did a little bit analysis, and what came to my mind is that this is a different firmware, and in this from when updating from one version to another, the firmware version after this were all encrypted, and there was some encryption routine which was introduced in this version. So I did a little bit of research and I came across one of the code inside this version of the firmware which had the encryption routine. So let me share that code. And it was a PHP code which was running. So it had different functionality which was getting triggered. If you see the downloading of the firmware, it is downloading the firmware, and it's somewhere in here. Okay. So basically it was downloading the firmware and executing a command which was basically decrypting the firmware, and this is download and this is running the firmware. So which was basically downloading a firmware and decrypting it. So the decryption binary was inside the file system. So if we go inside that file system, then you come across this binary called ENC-IMG. So this is a MIPS binary, and it is basically encrypting and decrypting the image. So let's try to decrypt this and see if we are able to decrypt the firmware. Let's try to run this using QEMU MIPS, and QEMU has different option. If you see, if you do the help, so I'm going to summarize that. If you use this option, you can set the root part of the operating system, which will load all the dependencies that the binary needs. So this is the root OS, and we will run the binary. So you can see that we are able to run this MIPS binary in our operating system, and it shows that it has input image, output image, decode, and file. So we are sure that we can decrypt our image with this. So let's try to see what all what is that image, and we see that this is that image file, and we are not able to, Binvock is not able to decrypt it. So let's see if we can do it with this. So the command line is input, and the key is, again, this key was hard coded inside the image, and D for decoding it. And if we run Binvock again, then we can see it was able to decode it. So basically, let's get back to the slide. So basically, you can use a combination of these two things, Binvock and Ghidra. I was able to reverse engineer this algorithm, what it is using, what all option it is using Ghidra, and it was a very painstaking reverse engineering. So I've summarized it for you. And the Binvock was able to later extract the same firmware. So there are many challenges in this. When you analyze the firmware, you find a lot of proprietary file format which is specific to vendors, and they have not published any thing about that. So that becomes a challenge. Sometimes they modify the compression algorithm which they are using, which again becomes a challenge to open or decompress the files. There are some hardware specific initialization. For example, if you run a particular web server in your binary, in your firmware, then that server first looks for some hard-coded value inside storage devices. Only then it starts the server, which again becomes a problem when you are emulating that hardware with QEMU. Firmware encryption is, again, we just saw the challenge that how encryption is also avoids the attackers to analyze the binary. So encryption is also sort of different from the vendor to vendor. Then another basic but important challenge is instruction set, what architecture that the firmware is based on, so it becomes difficult to analyze. So now let's look at the bare metal firmware. In the bare metal firmware, there is no application, there is no kernel sitting between your application and the hardware. The application code which is developed directly changes the hardware, and there are tool chains and API SDKs which are released by the vendor, and there are a lot of vendors in this space. Each vendor giving SDKs for their own development tools so that they can attract the developers, and the rate at which the hardware are launched and changed are very frequent. So the security review process of this thing are very questionable. So in this space, people have came up with a solution where there is a hardware abstraction layer, APIs which are developed, and your application directly interacts with those hardware abstraction APIs, and which in turn interact with your hardware. One very popular example of this is FreeRTOS and Mbed OS. These are real-time operating systems for microcontroller environment, and they have many APIs to interact with the hardware, and they are sort of abstracted out, and so you can effectively program on this platform for develop a program for this platform, and those all the APIs will run for all the hardwares. So usually if you have tried your hands on something like Arduino, you write application code which is directly then controlling your timer, processor, interrupt. You can program any of this part directly from your code. And usually how these devices communicate with other hardware is they use memory mapped IO. So what you do is you write specific value to a specific part of the memory, and that changes the behavior of other hardware that are connected to your main microcontroller. For example, your GPIO pin. If you want to put up the pin or pull down the pin, you write various values to a specific address, and you can see the change of behavior. So here is an example of a data sheet. You can find all this information in a data sheet, and one example of the data sheet is here. So here, if you want to communicate with the Ethernet MAC address, so this is the address range in which you have to write the data to. And if you, there are many such devices, like for example, one is the GPIO IHG, and there's one device RCC. So then if you want to further change the behavior of RCC, then this is the expanded view of that particular register. And if you write different value to different bits, you can see the different behavior. So let's take an example of weather monitoring system in which you are reading a data sensor from your temperature data, and you're sending the data over the Wi-Fi. So your code is continuously in loop and reading the temperature and sending the data on Wi-Fi. If we have taken this from a hardware abstracted out API perspective, then it would be something like this. You have a hardware abstraction API which is reading the data, and which have another hardware abstraction layer APIs which is sending the data to the Wi-Fi. So this is important because we will see how this thing, the hardware abstraction layer APIs, can help us to hook these functions, and we can emulate this sort of system, but without actually the need of the this hardware. So one such example of these abstractions are this is a UART manipulating APIs from the a framework libOpenC3, which you can find on this URL. You can change various baud rate of the UART device using this API. So let's look at what you can do to do static analysis of the firmware. So as you see, the static analysis help you to gain understanding of the firmware using just by reading the code and finding a certain pattern in your code execution. So one of the tools which are very popular in this space are Ghidra, IDA, Radare. So Ghidra, as we have discussed previously, is a reverse engineering tool. So in Ghidra, the reason for using Ghidra is it also helps you to define, gives you feature to define memory map of the device, and which we saw previously, that memory map IO. So we can define those memory map regions in the Ghidra memory map, and you can see how the device is interacting. So one example would be this. This is code. One of the microcontroller, I compiled the code for that and took out the binary and loaded that in Ghidra. That the microcontroller initially just mapped the flash memory and the RAM to the device, and I loaded the code and I was able to decompile certain code, but I was getting illegal access. I was pretty sure that this code is trying to access some hardware peripherals using memory mapped IO. So I have defined different region of the memory map, specifying what all region is what device, and this way I know what it is interacting with. So now that same code has resolved that it was interacting with UART. So now I know that my device is interacting with UART. Then there's some manipulation going on there. So I can write some data to the device UART and see if it is changing the behavior. So there's a very nice Ghidra plugin for doing that, SPD loader. And if you want those challenge of the binary which I just loaded in Ghidra, you can download it from this URL. So for dynamic analysis, we just saw that just not reading the code is not enough. We also need some facility to run that code and see if we can debug or change the behavior of the device, behavior of the input, change a certain input and see if there is any change in execution behavior of the firmware. So this can be done with QEMU, but there you have to do modify QEMU and write certain code. Another option is Unicorn Engine. Unicorn basically gives you APIs to load a certain memory section of the with code and execute whatever you want. You can even set the registers and read the output of each individual instruction and monitor the state of the execution. So it is very good for our purpose. For example, you can so Unicorn also has API to hook certain section of the code. So if your execution is going to certain a memory address, you can write the code so that that memory address behavior control execution execution capability is passed to your code, and you can change the behavior of the whole emulation engine and see what all the changes have been made. So this API hooks can be used to collect the feedback, what all execution paths were taken, and you can record that data and you can get the coverage. You can, using this APIs, you can also fuzz firmware and keep collecting the coverage, execution coverage, and see if it is improving it in any manner. You can integrate this thing with AFL and get any find the bugs if you want. So emulation is also a way to go, because with this you can parallelize 100 test cases, run as many test cases in parallel you want, and as on whatever powerful machine you have. But buying 100 device or 200 device to test all those parallel test cases, which becomes difficult. So using this emulation approach is a good way to go with this. So you can also test only certain section of the firmware without actually running the whole firmware, and this gives you a partial execution capability. So you are only targeting the part of the firmware which is dealing with data parsing. So some of the challenges are there are no uniform binary format. So you have to do a lot of reverse engineering of the firmware to actually understand what the firmware is and what all data section you need to load and where all the data is kept. So this is usually found from the data sheets. You need to get the data sheet and find what is the initial execution point. Identifying instructions that has also become difficult. So if you just have the binary block without knowing the device, it is very difficult to guess the instruction set on what CPU instruction set it is compiled for. And different SOCs, so different firmware will have a different memory mapping. So you need to have the data sheet for that to get that. Another important point is entry point, identifying the entry point. So this helps you in disassembling the code. Otherwise, your disassembler will not be able to figure out from where to how to disassemble the code. Instruction set routine is basically whenever your device is getting interrupts, it is switching from various privileged states. So ISR is sort of that gateway between your one privileged state to another. It defines what all different entry points are there for those privileged states. So identifying this table is also important. Sometimes it is easy, and other times you won't be able to find it. So thank you for listening to me. And if you have any question, I'm happy to take.
Thank you, Manavar. Thank you very much indeed. Fascinating. I'm afraid we don't have any questions yet. Come on, folks. Get asking those questions. I think they're on the right-hand side. Is that the correct side? I'm not sure. But on the right-hand side there for your in the comments field, and ask some questions there. But in the meantime, Manavar, what made you even want to get into looking into firmware analysis of this kind?
So the interesting thing about this firmware is you can modify this software, and you can see some hardware changes that are there in the device. You can change your fridge into doing some weird stuff, changing temperature of your fridge refrigerator. Sorry?
turn your fridge into an oven.
Yes. That's a very interesting use case.
Kind of, but
yeah.
But
if you want to freeze your food, or if you don't want to, if you want the report of your food on your phone, you can do that.
Yeah,
you can change the behavior of your. So when you go into market, you buy the wireless devices, wireless cameras, and sometimes they have a very good processor and they're not fully utilizing that. So you can install additional software in that. You can change the security of that devices.
Get your light bulbs to mine Bitcoin for you.
Exactly.
You know,
some malicious purpose. If you are controlling, then.
Yeah, exactly. I know there's quite a few companies. Their routers, for instance, are very good for breaking the firmware on and reinstalling, additional functionality onto the hardware. Is it D-Link or TP-Link? I can't remember.
So there was recently I came across a blog where the guy had modified the firmware to use the radio of the router as a frequency analyzer. So to read the radio, read the radio signal around it, other than Wi-Fi and what it was supporting. So it can also repurpose the hardware some other would do.
Yeah, and other functionality like allowing for a VPN server on there for to come in from outside, yes. All that sort of stuff. I'm not sure what it does to the warranty.
Vendors don't like that.
No, that's
people right. Picking into your device.
Especially Apple. The whole jailbreaking thing.
That is what Richard Stallman is fighting for.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the right to do it, but not necessarily to maintain your warranty, I guess, is the key difference. Munawar, thank you. Munawar, thank you so much for your time and for your contribution and knowledge.
Thank you.
You get another virtual round of applause. Thank you very much.
Thank you.